And with that, I'll introduce our instructor for this morning, Gene Tooney.
Thank you, Tom. Well, first of all, let's make sure everybody's awake out there. Who believes Texas Boys State is one of the premier programs under the American Legion? Raise your hand. All right. We've all established that that is a common fact. We all firmly believe we have drank the Kool-Aid, we're into the punch. But how do we get that great word into our communities? How do we get involvement? How do we get the schools involved? How do we tell them what the benefit is and what will they take home after that week, that great week at Texas Boys State? What you see before that we're going to give today is a presentation that is a derivative of the presentation that was originally created by the Texas Boys State staff. We have modified that to put a spin on it toward a Legion perspective. This is an informative presentation that will tell you what your candidates and your delegates that you send to Boys State go through during the week. We could also get into some other topics about fundraising and all that stuff, and we all do it different ways. We're going to go to this first and see if time limit gives us any latitude on the back end of it. Please, it's a two-way communication. If you have anything or any comments pertinent to the discussion, you know as much about the program as I do. We're all training, we're all learning, and I hope we get something out of it. First of all, the motto of Texas Boys State is learn by doing. How do they get the aspect of learn by doing? Has anybody got any suggestions out there? We have to get them involved. On day one, the Texas Boys Stater gets to Austin. He gets divided, he gets checked in, he gets put into his city, and immediately that evening they are presented with the nuts and bolts, the 101, the 201, the 301, the 401. Congratulations, you graduated within 45 minutes of a presentation by a facilitator / counselor. And they are told, you now must elect a mayor of your city, because after we elect the mayor of this city, I as a counselor, I as a facilitator, will now step down and give you the reins. This is your Texas Boys State. You will get out of it what you and your fellow citizens put into it this week. That mayor then takes over. The counselors / facilitators' role for the rest of the week is to make sure that the boys operate within the rules and regulations of the Texas Boys State Learn by Doing motto. We sometimes, we being me, learn through my past failures. So as facilitators and instructors, we allow the boys sometimes through the week take a course of action that may not be something that we as Legionnaires want them to do. But that's the real world. These young kids come, they're 16, 17, 18, depending on what age they are as junior. They are living what they are going through. They probably aren't persuaded by any other biases. They come straight from junior year in high school, and we put them in this position. They will learn by doing that week, and we have afforded them that opportunity. So our schedule for the week is what the boys can gain from the week, what we want to happen when they return home, how the Boys State builds their resumes for college and beyond, and how Boys State can expand into other American Legion programs. Now, I'd like to really talk about point number 5 up there, how Boys State can expand into other American Legion programs. Toward the end of the week, we will have parents that come and go and talk to their children, especially in the golden age of social media. We have posts that are going on right then and there. These young boys have smartphones. They have Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. They say Facebook is for all us old people now. But they are Twittering. I mean, they are posting on the block. Look at me, /hashtag elect me now. They are living in the moment. The parents are there. We have paid for them to go, raise funds for them to go and participate in Boys State. But while we're there, we as Legionnaires ought to also take the opportunity and remind them, parents, if your son has a daughter, there's also Auxiliary Girls State. Does anybody here like to shoot guns? We have junior shooting programs. Does anybody here like to get other scholarship programs for oratoricals? We must always PR and brand our programs to cross-train into other programs, and we get a double win-win situation. So we take that time to also educate them about the American Legion, Sons of the American Legion. We oftentimes have Texas Boy Staters who leave that week and go home and join Sons of the American Legion. That's a win-win, isn't it, folks? Absolutely. Well, the big picture of Texas Boy State is in these three categories. We have the city category, the political category, and the elected election process. Usually, our boys are well aware of the election process. A lot of them come to Texas Boy State knowing that I'm going to go and I want to be the governor. They've visited the websites, they've talked to past Boy Staters from their high schools, and they know that my agenda is to be elected to a certain position. Well, we also take the time through the week to explain to them how the city role works, how the political role works, and we further and hone their skills of leadership and abilities by teaching them the proper city and political process. It's an amazing program. We should be proud that we give these young men an opportunity to learn this process, to see them network in their cities, to see them network in their counties and their precincts, and to watch them grow throughout the week is just simply amazing. And when they go home after they've slept for 12 hours, they keep that with them. And many of those boys have established Facebook cities that are 8, 10, 12, 15 years old. Some of them still have the camaraderie from 30, 35 years ago. So we'll go into a little bit of detail on this. The organizational structure is the day they check in, within the first check-in, they'll be assigned their city. Their cities are then broken down, and we use a bunch of fake cities within the state. Well, I believe they're actually named after those cities, right, Commander?
Named after past commanders by and large.
Past commanders by and large. We have grown the city population based on our growth of the program to now 24 cities. We take really huge strides to make sure that we split up any common boys. So if you send 6 boys from the same post, the Texas Boy State staffs tries to break them up so they don't have any prearranged networking abilities, and we divide them and make sure they're in different cities and precincts. We try to put them in as much real-life scenarios as possible. So Sunday they do check-in, they do that city orientation, and then we begin the servant leadership curriculum process. During the week, the Boy Staters will get to hear from numerous amounts of visiting dignitaries. On Monday, typically they organize the party political process. They begin their band and Olympiad, the sports. They conduct flag lowering ceremonies, and they meet the visiting dignitaries. The Texas Boy State staff has allowed Legionnaires to come in even if you have not been a previous Texas Boy Stater. Why is that important? Well, I'll tell you what, that's important for me because my junior year in high school, I had to choose between 3 or 4 different camps that year. I had Texas Boy State, I had an Odd Fellows National Pilgrimage Tour, and I had a band camp. Well, I chose a different one, not Texas Boy State, because it was 21 days and I was going to get to go to Canada and Washington, D.C. and a bunch of other things. So I didn't actually go to Texas Boy State. If there was a prerequisite of our facilitators and counselors having to have a previous Boy State Alumni Association, I wouldn't be able to volunteer and go. So they have graciously allowed Legionnaires, because it's our program, if you want to become involved and be a volunteer for 1 day, 2 days, or the whole week, you can do that if you follow all the correct enrollment facilities and get your background checks and be a part of the organization. So one of that we get to do as Legionnaires is we really they have given us in the last 2 years all of the flag etiquette training and the lowering and raising of the flags. My father is heavily involved in that. I'm involved with it. And we encourage any of you to come along because the Texas Boy State staff is willing to give us many more avenues if they fit within the Texas Boy State parameter. So if you want to get involved, you have an opportunity to get involved. And I encourage you to do that, whether it's 1 day, 4 hours, or the whole week. We need Legionnaires there. On Tuesday, they typically start their speeches for office. They continue band and Olympiad, sports. They start talent show tryouts. They conduct flag lowering ceremonies. They meet with the visiting dignitaries. and they enjoy starting their voting process in the primary election rounds. So now we have had the mayors, we have had the cities established, we have had a lot of tutoring, mentoring going on. Past National Commander John Breeden is there helping. Been involved how many years, sir?
30.
30 years. We have a lot of tenure there. So they are getting a lot of information on that, but remember, it's learned by doing. If it's not within the parameters of the program, our role is to simply keep them within the parameters. They may come to us and ask us a lot of questions. We don't tell them how to run their program, we just tell them what the rules are around their program. On Wednesday, they continue the party political process. They are out there campaigning, they're doing their platforms, we have runoff elections, we finalize all the party platforms, we continue to work our flag lowering and raising ceremonies, and we still have visiting dignitaries. Thursday, final speeches for the Attorney General, the top 3 officers, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Governor. They complete the election process, and then they go into extracurricular activities. The Olympiad process is pretty good. There's a little town competition, who has won the most points in various different activities throughout the week. Sports is a big part of it. It's also a big part that we need them to get a lot of their energy out. So they're very competitive. There's a lot of basketball brackets going on. There's football brackets going on. There's dodgeball, which is very, 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 very popular. They love to get out there and do the open air dodgeball. It is just great. During that time frame, we have mini conferences that the boys, if they're not interested in sports, educational, college-based programs that they can go. We keep them engaged during that time frame, but it's more about it's their big free time in a controlled structure environment. So the Olympiad part is very, very important. We have had Legion Day throughout the years. It's migrated from various different nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, Thursday nights. The last few years it's been on Thursday or Thursday evening. The talent show usually accompanied that, and it's an opportunity for the Legionnaires to come and watch these young boys do their talent show. And they also, on the Legion Day, whenever that day is picked, is when the commander from the Legion, the auxiliary president, and the SAL detachment commander gets to address the boys' staters, and the Legionnaires that are there get recognized as well. Who all has come for a Legion Day or a Legion Night? Raise your hand. What have you thought of it? Great? Awesome? It is. It's a fun time because you actually get to see what you've had a small part in. And then on Friday, they conduct flag raising. In the past, we've been able to do the UT Mall. This day sometimes changes, depends on the schedule. But sometimes it's pretty neat to see the young kids go out there and raise that 60-foot flag over at the mall on the campus of UT. So this is a basic outline. Now, granted, take in mind, year to year to year, we have a lot of logistical issues that get in the way, and the Texas Boys State staff may have to move some things. It may not always be done, particularly on these days, but all of these activities happen throughout the week. Some of the procedures we can't change, which is the political election process, because we have to follow that structure. But moving of a certain event from a day 3 to a day 2, that could happen. And right now I know the Texas Boys State staff is finalizing the activities for this year. Any questions on some of the schedule for the week? Some of the activities that go on there? Okay, I think we're going to get into that here. Also, we do a trip to the Capitol every year. We usually march in a big parade style. The Color Guard and the Flag Corps leads the parade from UT campus to the state capitol, and it's an awesome sight. Every year we have dedicated individuals who make sure we get the parade permits, we get the parade route established, we get the police escorts, we shut the roads down, and we do our march. It is an amazing thing to witness, to see 1,000 boys dressed in Texas Boys State t-shirt march about a mile maybe, if that, and ascend upon the Capitol. And we make sure that the center sidewalk gates are unlocked. And we march around the west side of it, we go down to the south, and we make our approach up that center sidewalks, and we just totally take over the steps in every bit of the Capitol. And all visitors who are there at the Capitol are like, what is going on? And then we get them together. And Scott T. Armstrong, one of the great counselors there, one of the great facilitators, gets them up there. And if you have not heard over 1,000 boys answer the call on who are we, and they all repeat back, we are Texas Boys State, you're missing something. You need to see that once in your lifetime. This is your program. You support it, you raise the funds for it, you send the young men there, you need to be involved in it. And then we have the band up there playing, we have the colors up there, and then after we do our ceremonies, we break them down and they get to go into the Capitol. In the past, we've had representatives, senators, House there, we've had lieutenant governors there address us, open their doors to us, let the young kids come in and ask them questions about it, one-on-one. It just varies from year to year. You're more than welcome to come and be a part of it at all times. The Capitol trip is pretty awe-inspiring. These are some of the things that I myself, Fred Rogers, Jerry Hines, my father, Larry Marshall, past Legionnaires who were volunteered in the week, we sat down a couple of years ago and we said, what do we think the boys gained from Texas Boys State that we as Legionnaires would like to take back to other Legionnaires to let them know what they're doing? So we came up with some things that we think they learn a new appreciation for patriotism. They learn new and long, lifetime lasting friendships. They learn a better understanding of how to build consensus through the civil discourses and the debates that happen throughout the week. They learn a knowledge of the two-party political system. And they learn to further their eagerness to be a servant leader in their schools and communities. I'd like to brag on something the other day. I received an email from Paul Barker. I believe, Fred, you were on that email as well, right, about the young man? Who here has ever received a letter from a Texas Boys State or Auxiliary Girls State, if we have any auxiliary here, 4 or 5 years later that said, Dear Post so-and-so, I just graduated from Arkansas, I just graduated from UT, I just graduated from whatever. Who's gotten a letter like that? I see a couple of hands, 2, 3, 4. This letter came from a man named Bane Bryant. His mother forwarded the letter and said, Dear Texas Boys State, my son just received his letter of acceptance into the United States Naval Academy, and he is also playing on the United States Naval Academy soccer team. Thank you for sending him to Boys State. It had a huge role in getting him into college. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. Did that young man not have his life significantly changed? Maybe in a small part from Texas Boys State? I say he did. Because I have received letters from people who graduated college, people who said, I got into the college that I wanted to on my preference because my selection committee told me that they saw Boys State on my resume. It's a huge impact out there. All right, leadership skills that they will be exposed to during the week of Texas Boys State. Patriotism. They will definitely learn pride relating to the nation, the culture, the politics, and history. We are not the NFL. As a matter of fact, we tell them, they sign a document that says throughout the week, I will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I will pay respect to that. This is not something that they paid for. This is a privilege that we as Legionnaires have given them to come and attend. So therefore, we can place these demands upon these young men, and they are willing to do it. Why? They're young, they believe in servant leadership, they're leaders, and they have respect for our country. They learn teamwork, they learn collaboration tools, decision making. If you don't think they're not making decisions that week, everything they do from the minute they get on that bus on the way to Boys State until they have finished their main objective is all about decision making. If they slept and they didn't listen to the rules and they didn't get their election process submitted on time to the right person, the precinct chairman, it's not recorded, they don't get on the ballot, they don't get elected. It's our job to let them learn by doing. They may have made a mistake and they have to suffer for that. But we also help them. If we see mistakes, we go back to them and get them along the way. Consensus building. They learn mediation skills. They learn how to resolve conflict. like I said, our counselors and facilitators are there. They take charge of their cities and they work their cities. And they are in charge all the way. Negotiating with groups, establishing common goals for the numerous options, leadership skills, accountability, confidence, honesty. They learn to be humble. Some of these overachievers have never, ever lost an election in their life. They have never suffered defeat, never known the consequences of it. We've actually had some that have lost their election on day 2 and called Mom and Dad, I want to go home. It happened last year. I lost my election and that kid went home. He learned a lesson. This year he's probably regretting that decision, but that's his choice. We counseled him and asked him not to do it, but he went home. Americanism. They learn more about pride. They learn about developing respect for cultural beliefs. Servant leadership is a buzzword that we put up there. They put others first. They learn to understand the quality and blessings that serving others needs. Integrity. Instill personal core values. Do the right thing even when no one is watching. West Point Code of Honor right there. So these are just some of the other things. Past counselors, anything? Would you like to add anything to that, Commander Bree?
I'll wait till you're done.
All right. So the election process, we talked about that earlier. We split them up into 2 mock parties, the Nationalists and the Federalists. They get their badges on check-in, immediately they know, they look down at their name, and it's either a blue or a yellow bag. They know what party they're in, they know what city they're in, and that's where it starts. Some of the Boy State events of today and yesteryears, you can check out TexasBoyState.com for the updated information. Social media, we have our Facebook accounts, Google's, we have statesmen that send pictures, and we promote Legion Day. We have 2 awesome men that are the main 2 men that do our PR and branding throughout the week on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram that help keep the American Legion brand appropriate. When we have things, we boost the Facebook hits, the likes, the shares, and we see it get promoted and promoted and promoted. They actually keep statistics on how many likes and how many forwards and how many shares we get throughout the week. It's just a part of branding the Texas Boy State thing and controlling some of the information that gets out there. We work really hard in boosting all of the really, really great, super influential posts. And if we see one that's not up to date, because we can't control all the smartphones that are out there, we try to mitigate some of those less productive posts that are out there by keeping them boosted down and have other things out there. And those men do a really great job because our image in the last couple of years has been very well received. We now stream video for the parents that can't come down and see what their sons do on closing ceremonies. It's an awesome thing to have that out there. They get to log on and see what's happening live if they get to miss closing ceremonies. So in the last few years, we have really learned to take advantage of the media that's available to us because it's all about getting our brand out there. If mom and dad and grandmother and grandfather are happy in what their sons are doing and they're talking about it with their other people, hey, look at my son, he's at Boy State this week. And their next parent says, really, how'd they get to go there? Oh, the American Legion did that. Well, my son's a sophomore, how'd they get there? Bingo, we just got a new delegate, new candidate potential for the next year, right? So it's important that we keep our brands up there. Elective the process. Let's see. We have a couple of men over the years have learned to develop our electronic voting process. We have, I believe, 50 to 80 machines that we carry across the campus so that the young men, when it comes time to vote, can go to their various designated areas and vote. Voting is part of the process, and we award points to the cities to vote. If they get 100% city participation, they get more points towards winning the city award at the end of the week. We make it available as we can. In the past, we used to set up certain areas it was hard for them to get to. We have now tried to make it easier for them to vote. We now take it to numerous locations across the campus. If they're doing the sports, we'll take 20 machines down to sports. If they're over in another hall, we'll take 10 machines over to another hall so that we make the machines available for them to vote. The machines, the voting time frame is like our voting out in the real world. It closes on such and such a time. Then they're brought back to the headquarters, and then they accumulate the votes and then process them. Let me see. I know I probably didn't answer your question on voting, did I? Yes, your question.
So these kids go to Boys State. How does not everybody vote? I mean, I would think that if you go there for Boys State, that everyone has a vested interest in voting, so you don't have to twist their arms to do that. You know what I mean? It should be a 100% thing because they volunteered to go there. So that's what the logic escapes me on this one.
Okay, I'm going to restate the question in a summary. So this question basically is, why would the boys not want to vote? Is that correct, sir?
Correct.
Well, once again, I would refer back to the opening slide. It's a learn by doing. How many people who are eligible voters in your own hometown, in your own precinct, do you get 100% of those people to show up? No.
But that's different.
Well, we try to make this represent the mock real world. I see you're chomping at the bits. Let me give you a microphone.
This has actually been a change, because if you went back 25 years ago, we required them to vote, okay? And we made the decision, and particularly when we've gone electronic, because it's allowed a whole lot more difference, because used to preparing the ballots, counting the ballots was a major project. And this has changed the dynamics in a lot of ways. And so we're able to say, okay, here's the voting time, and we've got a lot of things going on. You have to manage your time to do all this, and we're not going to require you to vote. You're encouraged to vote, okay? But we're not going to require. So we have a 96% turnout, a 94% turnout. And realize we have a primary election, we have a runoff election, we have a general election, and so we have more opportunities for them to vote, and they feel sometimes more reason to vote for certain candidates in certain elections versus other times and all. But we then post and say, here was the percentage of people who voted. You know, take a look. If you're one of those that didn't vote, why didn't you vote? You know, and why was it important? And by this election right here, this was a tie. One vote would make a difference, and you didn't vote. And so we try to illustrate it and try to use it as a learning opportunity rather than you must vote.
Thank you, Commander. And like you said, in real life, you wanted to vote, and you waited till the last day, and then you had a flat tire and you couldn't get there. They may have chosen to be part of the sports team and the band team, and they may have overloaded themselves, and they couldn't get there before the time ran out. We actually try to make this a life learning process. Sometimes in life, you're going to have to make those hard decisions. What do I do, and what am I going to lose on the back end, and what is more important to me? Once again, reinforcing the learn by doing. If you made your plate over full, you overloaded it, you run out of time. Any other things on voting process? It's basically, they get told exactly how they have to fill their ballots out. They're required to get a certain amount of pledges on them, just like the real world. You have to put your ballot in, you have to get your monies in, and the money fees are really cheap. Some of them are a quarter. Governor might be $1, I think. It's not very much, but we want them to understand, if you want to run for an office out in the real world, it costs you a little bit of money to get your name on the ballot. You have to get the signatures required to get your name on the ballot. We make it as close to real world as we can. So when the statesmen are on their way home, we hope that they will come home and they will send thank you notes to the sponsoring organizations. How many posts here do a post-Boys State awards banquet of some sort, or thinking? I think it's pretty common across the state. Most of us do that. Number one, what it does is it reinforces an individual to come back to the organization who gave them an opportunity to benefit from, and they get to say thank you. Number two, it's another opportunity for the American Legion for us to further brand ourselves within that young man and his family, and we invite them to bring their friends. Let other young men and their other friends and acquaintances see what they got to be a part of. And it's all It's a win-win situation. Schedule the event. It's really hard. You may not get them all there. I know in years past, I've been to events, being a district commander at certain different posts. We had 8, but only 4 could come. I mean, they may have gone to Boys State, and that week they may have already started football, or they may be at another leadership camp. We do the best we can to try to schedule around their conflict. Work with your local papers, get the press releases out there. This is our opportunity to really promote one of our premier programs out there. Work with your local school leadership, the principals, talk up the program. To get good young men to come to the program requires a lot of work on the American Legions in the local community. If you're not in the schools, if you're not with the counselors, and if you're not with the family members, the parents out there promoting our programs, you're not getting the best penetration that you probably could get. The more you work the program, the more you communicate the program and show these benefits and get them involved with it, the more successful your local program will be. Your fundraising activities, acknowledge them. Bring them to the thank you banquet and let them see what the boys have to say. It will then in turn reinforce to them that their gracious benefit, donation to your organization was worth it. So all of that is a great thing to do.
Gene,
Yes.
reference the press statement afterwards.
Yeah, the press statements.
Living in El Paso, there's a number of posts within the city limits. Would you recommend that each post try and do their own press, or get all the posts that have sent delegates to Boys State to do that press release all at a single shot?
Well, I'm going to say that's going to be a case-by-case basis, and it could be either way. If you think your local press will do it at a single post level, we would get more publicity, we would get more press time by having 6 posts get 6 individual articles. But if you think you only get a one-shot deal, I would say that it might be better for all 6 to go together. Hey, look, this entire town of El Paso, 4 American Legion posts had 28 Texas Boys Staters. Numbers might be more powerful. That's a personal preference. There's really no right or wrong answer to that. It just depends on how you think you can get. In a small rural town, you're probably going to be able to get easy coverage. In a large metropolitan town, they may not even want to cover it all because there's been too many other bad things in the news that's going to take up their time or space, right?
Thank you.
So you may have to play the big numbers game in a metropolitan area. Okay. How Boys State can expand into the American Legion programs. I talked about that earlier, but oratorical, junior shooting, baseball, Eagle Scout, scouting, school awards, and I get asked this all the time. How does his sister get to go to a program? We should, the American Legion Auxiliaries in our family, we should promote their programs because they're promoting our programs. So these are some of the other growth programs. It's an honor to attend Texas Boys State. If you think about it, we are not penetrating 100% of all the high schools in the great state of Texas, by far. We have penetrated and we are very successful in the ones that we have had participation with, and they usually participate year after year after year after year. Occasionally, they'll drop out a year and then they'll come back a year. We keep statistics on those. We usually follow up, well, we do follow up with the schools that sent a citizen last year but didn't send one this year. But it's important for us to use that ambassadorship to keep everybody involved. And they're good at it. If we arm them with the tools, the Boys State delegates themselves, they will promote it for us. They'll keep it on Facebook, they'll keep it on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. They do a good job for us. But we want to tell them, to do that. In addition, make sure that we can track their statesmen's offices that they saw. One, it just helps us to promote our own program. Include Texas Boys State pins and the graduations certificates, as part of the high school honors. One of our best selling items that we have at the Boys State store is the graduation cords that they get to wear when they graduate as a senior. And it's amazing. Some of the boys, when they go through the line, don't want to buy it, but mom and dad say, no, you're going to buy this cord and you're going to wear it. I mean, just think about it. We now have a lot of high schools across the state that are wearing graduation cords from our kids that go to Texas Boys State. And the other student body members go, I don't recognize that red and blue one. Where did you get that one from? I went to Texas Boys State. What's Texas Boys State? Bingo, more PR right there. You know, so the recognition. They join groups on social media. They join their alumni groups, and we continue to provide scholarships, you know, through the Texas Boys State program. Our website, texasboystate.com. I believe I was in a discussion earlier about where do I get information at. The texasboystate.com website is loaded with information. Go there, and you're free to use any of that information in your own presentation in your local schools, with the local counselors, to gain to get more students who aren't involved right now. And by all means, just promote it and be a good steward of our program. Now then, they do what they learn, and that pretty much ends that presentation as far as the presentation goes. Do we have any extra comments? I know Commander Green, you've been in the program for 30 years. I've only been in it for about 8 myself. I would like to give you some time, sir.
Hey,
You had a question.
I had a
Go ahead
question.
and take it.
So my question is on transportation, especially if there's only. So my question is on transportation for this young adults. There's been questions as far as liabilities, especially if the post only has 1 or 2 kids to send. And if you decide that you want to transport them and there's an accident, the liability is what the concern is. So how do you address that?
Okay, I'm going to come over here to Tom Twerk, our Americanism chairperson. I believe he has I think I have an answer, but I want to make sure it's correct. On the transportation.
As far as I know, whenever you transport them to Boys State, there is an insurance with Boys State that it can be covered by, en route and home. So it's not a separate policy. There is insurance that the American Legion has.
Is that on the program itself?
Well, and also your own post, you have liability insurance because it's a program from your post. Your post liability will protect you as a post.
As an individual for the.
It protect you as a post. So if these kids are going and they sue whoever the driver was of the car or whatever, and the post, you will be protected under your liability insurance of the post as a post. Now, whoever is driving, they've got to have their insurance in their situation, but that's the way that liability works.
Thank you, sir.
Okay? Now, as long as he brought up, I've got something I want to cover, and we're running out of time, but let me hit a couple things. One of the things that, and I do a little orientation for the parents and the kids and whatnot, but I tell them, you know, when you get there, everybody handles things differently. And I know that from my area, you know, it's a 2-hour drive to Austin. And we tell the kids, look, you're going to go and you're going to find that not only did the folks from here have their tuition paid, but they give them $50 on spending money. And in addition to that, they do this or they do this. And you'll find from the Valley, they have a bus, or from El Paso, they have Southwest Airlines. All this other's going on, and you make us drive ourselves. And what I tell them is, our post is sending 10 kids. If you want us to send 5 kids and pay for your transportation and give you $50 spending, we can do that, but we send less kids. And some of you would not be going because you would be 6th, 7th, or 8th. You'd be alternates instead of the one. And so we choose not to give you the spending money. We choose not to pay your way. We choose to say, at this meeting, it's a little orientation, you get together, 2 or 3 parents drive and take the folks up, 2 or 3 parents pick them up or whatever, and handle it. That's the way we do it. That doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it. What we also do is we send 10 kids and we pay for 1. And the Evening Limes pays for 1, and the Sons of Herman pays for 1, and the Elks Lodge pays for 1, and etc. And those kids know that's a sponsoring organization. They all come to our banquet, but then in addition to that, they go to their meetings and say thank you. And so that can be done that way. Is when I was district commander, I went to, actually it was outside my district, but I went to install officers. And what I found was that installation night was also Boys State and Girls State night, and it was also one other thing, and I forgot what it was, but they had this huge crowd. And so the first little girl gets up there that went to Girls State and says, thank you to my sponsors, Lil's Beauty Shop, so-and-so convenience store, such and such. They had like 4 different places that each paid something in to sponsor. And they sent 4 girls and they sent 4 boys, and all of them had multiple sponsors from businesses. The businesses were represented. Then later I saw in that community's newspaper pictures of them and listing their sponsors, which gives those people free advertisement, and they continue to get sponsors as a result. So there's numbers of ways to raise money and send kids. Now, the reason I actually got up here, one of the things that I want to emphasize, and I have not been to Arkansas's Boys State, but I've been up to Oklahoma's and I've been to a couple other ones. Every one of them is completely different. And I'm just going to use Oklahoma as an example. In Oklahoma, they elect their folks within the first couple of days they're there. And the rest of the time, a governor's learning, what does the governor do? And a city councilman's learning, what does a city councilman do? Well, that's great that they're learning that, but if you happen to be this, you're not learning this over here. Texas has made the decision, and this goes way back 75 years ago or so when it first started, to say, we want to understand the elective process, and we want people to understand, because most folks don't understand political parties. They don't understand how you get on the ballot, what happens as far as is the way to run. And so we spend most of our time in the elective process and the political process. Like right now, what most folks don't understand is there is an election process and a political process that's going on. And when the primaries happen on March the 6th, there will also be a precinct meeting of each of the political parties that night. How many people have ever been to a precinct convention? Okay? That you're actually a bigger percentage than most times, because most of the time there might be one person in the crowd that raises their hand. Because they don't understand, and they don't understand how their delegates are elected to the county convention and then to the state convention. From the county convention, delegates are elected, and then in the years of presidential election to the national convention. They don't understand why is going on there. They don't understand the platform. They don't understand what's going on. We're teaching all of that. And the kids are involved in that. And they have to understand that if you're going to run, how many times has someone just said, I'm going to run as this Kinky Friedman, independent guy, right? Well, did he win? No. Did he have the support? No, because he didn't have a political party behind him. And you have to understand how that all works. How can you be involved? Now, we're not telling them what political party to be involved with, but we're teaching them, here's the way it works. And we're teaching them how to run for office. One of my favorite stories, and there's more than one I can tell, but when I was running for department commander, the second time, by the way, because I ran and lost, but when I was running for department commander, I went to a district convention, and I'm not going to say a whole lot because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but this happened to be in a rural part of Texas, and we made the trip. Actually, it was a 2-day trip because we drove one afternoon, spent the night, and drove in the next morning. The district convention was to start at 9 o'clock. I'm there at 8 o'clock greeting everybody coming in. John Reed running for department commander, et cetera, and I want your vote. And we're getting close to 9 o'clock, and everybody gets seated, and we don't start. And it's now 5 after 9, and everybody's kind of milling around and what's going on, and it's getting to be 10 after 9, and finally the district commander says, the mayor is going to bring the welcoming. And he said it was important, but he's not here. And so finally, it was approaching 9:15, and he said, we got to start. Obviously, he's not coming. So we open the meeting, and we're doing the opening ceremony, and just as we finish, the door opens, and in comes a guy in muddy, nasty coveralls and what all. And everybody says, well, the mayor's here. and so, oh, okay. So they introduce him, and he comes up to the front, and he says, let me tell you, I'm an oil field welder, and we had an emergency last night, and he says, I've been working all night long. And we got to a point where I told folks, it needs to go on hold right now, because I've got to go address the American Legion. It's important that I do. And I'll be back later to start back up where we were. And he said, so I apologize for the way I'm dressed, but let me tell you why it's important that I'm here and that you're here. He says, years ago, I went to Boise State. And I can tell you that it made a huge impact on me and this community, because you see, this community was a crooked little community. He says, the powers that be passed a bond election because we needed to pave the streets in this little town. And 6 or 8 years later, nobody knows where the money went, but the streets weren't paved. And so they talked about they needed to pass a bond issue to pave the streets. And finally it passed, and some years later, the streets were not paved, and nobody knows where the money went, and everybody knew it was crooked, and yet nobody knew what to do. And he said, we were talking about it at the coffee shop one morning, and I told him, I know, somebody needs to run for mayor, and we need to have community support. Well, eventually, I was talked into running, and I told him I wouldn't do it without all of your help. And here's what we've got to do to be successful. And he says, I ran for mayor, and we've cleaned up the place, and we passed the bond issue, and we have begun to pave streets. Now, if there's no other reason for Boise State to exist but that, it's worth everything we do. And there's multiple stories like that, and there's some that maybe is not as dramatic as that, but they make a huge difference. And so what we're doing is we're training leaders, but we're also training citizens. Part of being a good citizen is finding that right person to support and offering the support that goes with that. And that's what we're trying to accomplish, because you see, when we actually teach people how to be involved in their government and what's necessary for them to be involved, we change our communities, we change our state, and we change our whole nation. And that's what we're accomplishing, and that's why I have volunteered to go to Boise State for 30 years, because it has been the kind of thing where I get a chance to see some of that. I was 1 year a counselor at Boise Nation, and then I became a commission chairman at Legion, and you can't do both, and so I was no longer able to do that. But that 1 year, and the kids that I saw that were just 2 from each state that get selected, a few years ago I was walking through the Capitol, and all of a sudden, Commander Breeden, Commander Breeden. And I'm looking around, and I finally spotted the young man. He said, I don't know if you remember me. And I said, I remember your face, but I don't remember your name. He says, I'm so-and-so. I was the New Mexico delegate to Boise Nation, and I was in your section when you were a counselor. And he says, today, I'm the chief of staff for the senator, or one of the senators from New Mexico. When I was national commander and I was in Los Angeles, the mayor of Los Angeles could not be at the ceremony that was happening, and he sent his aide, his I don't think it was chief of staff, but major aide. But the reason that this aide is the one that was there, he volunteered because he was my junior counselor when I was a counselor at Boise Nation. So what you see is you're training people that are coming up through and making a difference in everything that's happening in both cities levels and federal level and everything in between. Questions? Should never given me a mic.
Thank you, Commander. Okay, so we're about out of time. I will be here throughout the rest of the weekend. If you've got any questions or comments, please come see me. I'd like to reinforce one little thing: to learn by doing, servant leadership, and we are Texas Boise State, and you make it happen. Thank you for all you do. My dad has one announcement, and we have to close this segment up.
Thank you. All you district commanders that came and got shirts, I believe I've got about 7 that haven't showed up at my room, 725. So when we adjourn here today, please come by and pick up your Boise State shirts to distribute out to your members. And remember, the slogan is, we need you to come to Boise State. Be a volunteer. Join this program. Maybe you want to go on there too. I hope they'll accept me again this year. But we have fun down there. And that's what we're saying, like Commander Breeden said. We change lives, we meet people, and you'll be pleased that these people are going to make a change in your life also. Thank you.